Well, the first mission, Pillar of Autumn. What do you think about it in retrospect? You know, we start off in the hutch casket. We have no weapon, and then we get to Captain Keyes. He hands us a weapon that's not loaded, and then we miraculously pick up ammo that's not even there on the floor.
I have not played Halo co-op with Bryan in a while. Because, to Bryan's credit, I'm always, if we're available to play Halo, I say, let's play multiplayer. And Bryan says, okay.
I'm like, Josh, can we play campaign, please?
Yeah.
Please? And he's like, no. And I'm like, oh, dear Lord. Oh, please.
There's always a little part of him that's bummed. And so we finally went back into this after a long time. I did not realize Bryan was going to be quite the betrayer. Bryan turned out to betray me at every chance he could get. If my back was turned to Bryan and I was within meleeing distance, I was going down.
I wanted to relive my childhood days of, like, me and my brother betraying each other, so I just kept betraying you.
Did you get to do it? Do you feel like you succeeded in that?
It feels great.
You asshole. No, it was fun. You know, you mentioned the anniversary graphics. When I played, my first experience with the anniversary graphics, guys, was when Bryan and I played Combat Evolved on MCC launch night. And I can't remember now if I like switched back and forth a lot. I think I did, because I don't think I wanted to stay through just on one, having not ever experienced the other before. But yeah, I don't jive with it as much, but it's still cool. And but it was fun to just go back to OG Halo and play through it that way. It felt more relaxed in that way, just sticking with one. Mm-hmm. And no, it was fun. It was fun playing through that first level, because it's like, I don't know. I had not played Halo co-op with Bryan in so long. I just didn't know what kind of like shenanigans it was gonna be. I mean, we'll probably talk about it more as we kind of go along. But the biggest takeaway I kind of had overall from this entire experience was that, if you guys notice, if you guys have watched this in the first couple episodes, we're really just focused talking about Halo. And then as time goes on, we start kind of like talking about other things and start moving into other subjects. Yeah. And it was just really fun because, you know, we just. You know, some of the stuff we want to talk about, because it's just like when we record a podcast, there's some topics we want to cover, and then there's other ones that we just naturally come up with on the fly. And we didn't really know what we were going to talk about or necessarily do, and it was just a lot of fun to kind of figure that out as we went along.
It just kind of showed that Halo co-op is a really good water cooler type game to just kick back and just chat about with anything.
Up to about 343 Guilty Spark, it's a pretty relaxing and fun experience, you know?
Yeah, right.
Then it's like, what the hell's going on now? I got to pay attention. So.
Yeah, but I think one thing too I noticed throughout the campaign, that because since we recorded this footage, I had a timer up, and it was crazy to me to realize, you know, I feel like the majority of the missions take about 20 to 30 minutes to play, and there's a couple missions that take like an hour, almost an hour. Now, it depends on the difficulty you were playing on, and you know, if you're playing solo or co-op, or if you're goofing off, or if you're really trying. But you know, the first mission was about 20 minutes straight. To get through.
It's one of the shorter ones for sure.
And I'll just echo something that people say all the time, is that, you know, Halo Combat Evolved is kind of genius how they open you up with this level that really just kind of feels like all the other first-person shooters. You know, very simplistic. You're on some space station or ship, and you're going through corridor hallways fighting aliens. I mean, it really wasn't anything phenomenal at the time. Of course, the controls for the console was phenomenal, but as far as
it was
what
without
you're doing,
saying, yeah.
Yeah, and it's weird to think about, too. There's no jackals on the ship. You don't fight jackals at all in that mission.
No, it is just elites and grunts.
Yeah, and
grunts.
I don't think there's no hunters either, so it's just elites and grunts.
I fucked so many of them up with those damn grenades at the end. Remember,
right.
I was like, I got to that part where there's all the grenades, the frag pickups, and I was like, bang, bang, bang. He's just chucking that shit.
Yeah,
that was fun.
It's a great intro mission, but I think it added to the game to, you know, to when you get to that second level. That's when people go, oh, wow, this is something different. This is not the same. So other than that, I don't really have much more to say on the first mission. I'm not trying to be analytical and go through every little detail, but Josh, you have anything to add to that before we go right into the second mission?
Just that, you know, I'll echo kind of what Bryan said. I mean, I agree. I think it's fun to look back. I mean, thinking of how linear that level kind of is in its structure, not knowing you're going to be going into this, you know, kind of like open world for the time kind of feel for the second level. Like, it's just going to open things up. And it's good in hindsight, right? Because, I mean, I think we can all agree it was a nice way of holding our hand into that, you know? And it was a nice way of just introducing us to the mechanics and just jumping us into the story without too much exposition, so we're not getting, like, bored. We go in, and it makes us curious. It makes us want to know more. We want to know where our escape pod's going to, and we get there with the level Halo.
Yeah, we get to Halo, and I think throughout this, us kind of assessing this, I'll mention a few things that I feel like Bungie was kind of trying ideas out because this is their first effort in this world, and then things they didn't really do later on, like having elites and grunts be the only thing you fight. I mean, if you look back at it now, I could almost see like an internal plan at Bungie that was like, here's how we're going to introduce enemies. Jackals don't come to the second mission. Hunters don't come till the third mission. Flood doesn't come till this point.
That's a good point, man, actually, because I only always look at it as just the Flood. Like, I always just think the Covenant's there from the beginning and first half of the game.
They kind of dole enemies out.
They dole them out.
Yeah.
Hot damn, I did not realize that until right now.
I mean, and then you have like, we're going to have Banshees. That's, even though that's the same enemy, it's like, we're going to introduce Banshees in the second mission. We're not going to introduce Wraiths until, what is that, the fourth or fifth mission? I think it's Assault in the Control Room. Yeah, it's the first.
I think it is.
Wraith.
Yeah.
So they're really doling out enemies. I know that in some regards that happens in the other Halo games, but I feel like it's very much more purposefully done in Halo.
Oh, and this was the first one too, so all the more it sets the tone. I mean,
makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, so first thing I think about when I get on the mission Halo, the second mission is, we always talk about how open it was, and on one hand, I love that even today it still feels open to me. I still get that feeling. Even though we know that if we could like go overhead and look down at the map, what you really have here is a straightforward path to an area, and then a straightforward path to another area, and then a little tiny hub that's got 3 places you can go and find Marines. I mean, it's very straightforward, really. There's not much open there. But it just feels so open. And like when me and Josh started that mission on the playcast, we ran over to the waterfall because there's this waterfall with rocks that is way off in the distance that there's no purpose to be there, but you can go there. And that was just so interesting for that time.
That's our Waterfang Gorge now.
that's the pre-Waterfang Gorge the build up.
Brian, how Taraz, like in some of his videos, has talked about how he has like the memories of Halo stuff where he's got like not just memories on certain maps but in specific areas. Mm-hmm. When there's that part after you cross the sort of bridge in the beginning, there's the Banshees that come overhead, you move through the trees, you fight the Covenant there. Up ahead, there's that little like wedge and you kind of drop down.
Yeah.
That takes you into that area where there's the Forerunner structure. Right before you drop down, I have so many, I don't know why, I have this so many distinct memories of just thinking there. Like, I guess for me, that's the moment where I'm like, this campaign is really kicking in, because as soon as you go into that structure, that's where the game, it does feel open when you land, but then that's where it's like really spacious. You see this big structure, you fight off these Covenant in different waves, the Warthog, and then you go down and you actually hear this is not a, I always forget that.
This cave is not a natural formation.
The cave is not a natural formation, yeah. And then everything, the rest of the game just takes off. I don't know. It's something about that area that I've just always loved. It's so weird.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird how the game continues to... Bungie is so smart in how they use the tools available to them. I think that's something they've done well even to this day with Destiny. They find ways to use things either over and over again or use them in different ways. Because even when I play Combat Evolved today, when I land on Halo, I'm like... I still feel like I'm ready to play this big open mission. But like I said, really what you're doing is... Like, I know that it has the look of openness because of the skybox and the field.
Illusions, Michael.
Yeah, illusions, but really you're just running straight. It's pretty much straightforward all the way to the end of the mission, and then there's a hub. You have this little open hub and 3 little, like, valleys you can go into that have Marines to save, and you can approach them in any way you want, any 3, and then once you save the 3rd one, the mission's over. I mean, that's it.
We still got lost, though. I think I was the one driving the Warthog.
It's easy too. Yeah.
It's so easy to get lost. I remember freaking, was it Cortana or Foehammer put up a damn waypoint because they were like, you guys clearly need help.
Yeah, like, Cortana's like, you guys are idiots.
Yeah, that's really funny.
But it's like, if you break it down to its brass tacks, it sounds really uninteresting. It's like, oh, this is the mission where you go and find 3 groups of Marines. Like, that's all the mission is, really. Yeah. But it's so much more than that in practice.
On paper, it doesn't sound too exciting.
Yeah.
But I think even when you take away, like, the novelty's not there for me anymore of it being this big, open, spacious thing. It's always this nostalgic feeling of my first experience of that, but it's that whole, like, newness factor doesn't have its lasting power. It's only through the nostalgia I feel it. So I still have fun playing through that level because of that, because of the structure of it's like, it is still linear in the sense of what you have to do for story progression, but in how you want to tackle it, they give you some player agency there, and that's pretty damn cool, and still kind of unprecedented for that time. Like, that's pretty interesting. Like, you pretty much said it well already, but I love that stuff. I love being able to go to the Marines. I mean, when you're playing through Pillar of Autumn, everyone's just dying, you know? And I mean, this is when you really get to, like, stand around and just listen to some of those Marines chatter. This is when you really get to see Sergeant Johnson.
Well, it just goes to you know, what we've said many times in the podcast before, is just how important the Marines were in Bungie's games.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, you look at something like Halo 5, I mean, I know there is a Marine in there, but, like, to me, it almost seems like there's not. Like, I don't even remember a Marine in Halo 5. It's just, like, Spartans everywhere, everything's high stakes, whereas, like, you know, just playing one of the original Bungie Halos with Marines running around, it's just like, what was that one line where he's like, kicking ass in outer space, thinking of you, Sarge, and, like, Sergeant Johnson's like, I heard that, you know, like,
yeah.
That stuff it paints just a different picture,
Sure.
you know, where Halo 4 and 5 games we also love feel very out there, sci-fi, really high concept.
Mm-hmm.
Bungie's games had this way of feeling like, we know this is the future, and we know there's stuff like aliens and Mjolnir armor, but really, our Marines and our characters are kind of just acting like your buddies in today's world. And
yeah, they did a really good job of making it feel grounded. I mean, I've always loved that those graphics, the way the character banter was with the Marines, and just sort of how interesting some of the dynamics can go with them. Whether they're dying, you're accidentally running over them, they're screaming, or they're saying stuff as they mow down grunts on the Warthog turret. It's pretty damn fun. Still to this day. I mean, that blew me away back in 2001. I just never had an experience like that. I don't think I played a whole lot of games that really gave you these AI companions. I don't think I had that experience.
Well, it's cool how they actually, like, most games that have, like, AIs that run around and you can choose to make sure they don't die. Yeah. There's not much of a reward there usually. Like, maybe most games, I feel like the reward is they'll help you kill enemies. Yeah. But the reward for the Marines is so high because they offer you really funny, unique dialogue. Like, that's a huge gift for keeping them alive.
I mean, when it comes down to it, for me, when I think about it, all this time I talk about how much I love the Bungie humor and all that. It started in that level. It wasn't in Pillar of Autumn. It really kicks off in Halo.
A little bit in the cutscene with Johnson in the first mission.
Sure, but I mean, that's really about it, you know, because Pillar of Autumn seems very much like, go, go, go. Like, you don't know what's going on. You're just trying to basically stay alive and get off the ship. And then you get to the level Halo, and then the story kind of like, it does open up, but it also kind of like slows down and breathes and lets you sort of like learn a bit. And you're still learning as you play through the entire campaign, but I love that though. I love how it flows. And I wanted to, Brian, you know, when we were playing it and I mentioned how robotic, you know, Cortana kind of sounds in this. This is kind of the first time I guess we both realized that, right?
Yeah, I mean, when we say robotic, we've said before, like, robotic isn't the right word because she doesn't literally sound robotic at all, but in the first game, Cortana is very much just there to deal information and speak she's very forward and right to the point as to what's going on. So she's more of like, I mean, I think conceptually I think she's supposed to be a guide for the player. And that's what she acts like.
That's what she is. When you see her cutscene, she's definitely has her personality and her flavor. The Cortana we know, she's there. But like it's very like Brian said, she's a guide in the gameplay.
By the time you get Halo 3, she's very much more this emotional character. I mean, she was in 2 there was more banter as well, but like
it built up.
3 really kind of peaked there, you know. And then of course you go into 4 where it's a whole different thing. But
absolutely,
Josh, you want to go on to Truth and Reconciliation? My first thought there with Truth and Reconciliation is kind of going back to like Bungie trying out all these ideas and seeing what worked is they tried to kind of go for a little bit of a stealth mission thing on this level with you being able to have night vision on your sniper and being able to actually kill enemies without them knowing of your presence. Like if you do it right, you can snipe enemies and have the other enemies around not be alerted. You can take them all out stealth. But even if you manage to pull that off, like this concept never really returns to Halo ever again. Even in Halo 1, Combat Evolved, or the other Halos. Like it just kind of, that's it.
What do you mean, the stealth aspect?
The stealth aspect.
Well, we get it in Reach.
Well, does it work stealth? Does stealth work in that?
I can't remember now.
I don't know if
I should know that. But...
I mean, for the most part, it never really took off.
I know what you're trying to say, though. I know what you're trying to say.
So, I mean, do you enjoy that, or is it more just like...
Hell yeah, I enjoy that. I think it's awesome. Like, it's weird to think that, like, the first level being what it is that introduction. The second level is, like, the game opens up, and you're on this, like, planet. You don't know what, you don't know what you're on. Covenant don't even know what they're on. But you guys are still fighting a battle. And then the third mission's like, okay, now we're going to do stealth. Like, first mission's like linear level, just learn how to play the game. Second level's like, open it up, give you some player agency, tackle this how you want. The third mission's like, now we're going to go incognito, and we're going to stealth our way around. All these different types of mechanics, and like you said, enemies constantly like hit and refresh and shit. It's amazing. It's amazing to think about. I didn't even realize that through the playcast, but that's fun to think about. Damn, that game is brilliant.
Yeah, I feel like you're playing through that mission, and it feels like you pretty much know how that mission's going to go. You're in the dark, and you're going from one area to the next, killing Covenant, and then suddenly, wait a minute, they introduced hunters for the first time. You take those out, and then you get to board the ship. And I feel like in 2001, obviously I played the game for the first time in 2005 is when I played Halo 1 for the first time, which is crazy to think about. But when I played it, I was still kind of in awe that you were able to, I'm putting up quotations because it's not technically true, but in gameplay, you get to board a Covenant ship. Like, you get to go underneath the thing that summons you up the ship, and then once you get there, it goes to a cutscene, and you watch Chief go up. And then the next part of the mission is you're fighting in the ship, and there's these now. There's another thing. We talked about them introducing new enemies, and then introducing new vehicles and stuff. They introduced invisible elites with energy swords.
We had some trouble with those boys, didn't we?
I think everybody did. I mean, and that's just kind of like this, once again, introducing new concepts over and over again.
Well, it's interesting, too, because you see the wraiths on this level when you're in the ship, but you can't do anything with them. But it's like, every time I play through it, I almost forget they're there because they're not usable. I'm not thinking about the environment as much, but they're there, It's just we don't really get to see them in action until later on. That's so damn cool. I mean, just the way, like you said, you funnel through the mission and there's this whole stealth aspect. They give you so much ammo. I mean, we noticed that. We mentioned that. So much ammo in that sniper rifle. And
you can just have fun with it.
Kudos to Bungie for doing that, because they realize, like, if we want you to do the stealth stuff, it's not really going to work if you're only given the typical amount of ammo.
Yeah.
It's going to make that fun factor wear off very quickly. So they give us a shit ton of sniper ammo, which you can almost use at least until you get up into the ship. If not maybe a little into it, depending on how well you play. And like Brian said, navigating through all that, you have the stealth, which is like the first half of that. Then you have the second half, which is trying to rescue all the Marines and everything that go up. And I love when they go up, because if there's actually some that you've still managed to keep alive and they go up, they always look like they're shitting their pants. Like, they're like, whoa, but Chief's just like, he's almost like man cannoning up in that thing, just like quiet.
It's like Buzz Lightyear.
Yeah, Buzz Lightyear, that's perfect. To infinity and beyond. Yeah. Now I want to play Buzz Lightyear 2. Or
you always want
Toy Story 2, Buzz Lightyear to the Rescue. I wish there was a Toy Story 2, Buzz Lightyear to the Rescue 2.
I mean, that's better game than Brute Force, if we're being honest.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, because I love that game.
What about a Brute Force? What if a DLC came out for Brute Force on Xbox Original today, where another member of the squad was Buzz Lightyear?
I play it. Guys, I talked before about how I've always, back in the day, thought for some reason Brute Force was the next sequel to Halo. Well, imagine my surprise when Chief at the end is like, I think we're just getting started, and I boot up Brute Force. I'm like, where the fuck is Chief at? I thought we were just getting started. Like, who are these guys? Where's Keys? Where's Cortana at? Where's the Flood?
Which game sounds more fun to you, Josh? Brute Lightyear or Buzz Force?
Definitely Buzz Force.
Right?
Yeah, I'd play the shit out of Buzz Force. That seems like the kind of game that would come on a compact disc. If you get like 5 boxes of Cheerios and you mail it in. Remember those back in the day? That was fun to do. Remember Chex Quest? That's like the greatest Doom game that's not an actual Doom game.
Kind of zooming ahead here, Josh. Once you navigate through the ship, you eventually find Keys locked up in a Covenant prison cell. And something I mentioned in the playcast is kind of funny, is like, the first way you discover what Halo is like, Keys is like, I heard them talking outside my prison cell. Apparently it's called Halo. And then Cortana comes over, she's like, Halo, it's a weapon, we got to make sure it's a weapon. We got to make sure the Covenant don't get it. And I'm pretty sure I remember in some kind of developer commentary and whatnot, them saying that there was going to be a much bigger, grandiose way of introducing what Halo was, but due to development time, it was just like, no, Keys is just going to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, knowing that doesn't change how I feel, I guess, because
it's still awesome.
My first experience of learning through that was the way they designed it in the game, so I'm still none the wiser in that sense for what they had planned. Exactly. And I love it. I love how he's got his hands clasped behind the back, and it's funny how static their movements are. Yet when I played that as a kid, and even today, I'm just like, I don't care, man. I loved how they moved.
another thing that Bungie tried and never did again, which I'm glad they didn't, was the keys. It's an escort mission. You have to escort keys, and he can die. And if he dies, you lose and have to restart.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't give a shit about keys when I'm playing that game. I'm just focused on killing them. Damn.
It doesn't matter though, even because if he dies, then you have to restart. So you have to kind of care about him.
I mean, I don't, but I know.
Well, I guess Josh restarts a lot.
I know. Yeah. Nah, I'm pretty good at what I'm doing.
He just runs in the middle of battle, takes needles to the chest, and he flies, and then the music's like, it makes like this horror music, and you have to restart, So, and then Keys,
it's funny too. We didn't mention it.
Out of there.
We didn't mention it earlier, but like Brian's just saying, Keys can die. Sergeant Johnson on the mission Halo is vulnerable. He can die. He can be killed. It's weird to think about. It
doesn't restart the mission for him.
Yeah, it does. No, it doesn't. But it's just the fact that you can kill these iconic characters that are. It gave me play urgency. It's fun. If I want to kill Keys, even though I'm going to have to restart, I can be like, I freaking hate this guy so much. Yeah. He gave me this pistol. He started me down this bad path, this journey that we're on.
As you melee Keys, he's like, "You're a leatherneck." I just always think it's funny when he says leatherneck.
Like, I told you. I thought I didn't keep this one loaded.
I don't know why. He's like, I don't keep it loaded, but there's a magnum you can't see in the hallway to the left.
Fun level though, very fun level. What's the next one?
Yeah, Silent Cartographer, my personal favorite mission in this game, if not all of Halo. I think everyone loves Silent.
It's hard to not like this level, man. Wow, this is the fourth level. I just had to say, to me, it's like it's where the game hits that middle ground. Like when it starts to get into the end of the first act into the sort of second act of the game, it's where the levels start to get a lot longer.
This makes it sound bad, but to me, Silent Cartographer is where the game peaks. It's the highest moment of the game. In one sense, that does mean it goes downhill afterwards, but the downhill is not bad at all. It's a really good downhill. Like, it's a purposeful, intentful downhill. Silent Cartographer, it's another one of those things where it's like there's really several different ways you can approach it. Like, when you start, the idea is for you to run up the beach with the Marines, take out the enemies, and then Full Hammer drops off a Warthog, and you continue to drive around. But I don't know if you've ever done this, Josh, when you start that mission, just go left. Just completely blow off all the enemies and blow off the Marines. Just go left. You can go left and progress the mission that way. It's not as fun that way. You can also, as you all know, when you get to that door that you're trying to get to, it gets locked, and there's an elite behind it. And then you have to leave and go unlock the door. Well, you can just blow right by that and not even have to deal with the cutscene of him locking you out, and go make sure that it's unlocked when you get there anyways.
What did we do? We unintentionally stretched this damn mission out.
Big time.
For what felt like, if this mission is like 45 minutes, it felt like we made it 2 hours. Yeah. Like, we decided to drive our Warthogs everywhere. This is where Brian started to kill me a lot. I low-key got annoyed. And we had a lot of fun doing it.
Well, this was our most iconic moment of the playcast, is when we were trying to wedge that Warthog all the way down Silent Cartographer.
Yeah.
And we ended up getting it, super far down, and I was goofy, and I was laughing hysterically, and Josh was making the jittering sound. Because as Master Chief's caught in the door, he's shaking around, and Josh is making a sound, and I can't hardly breathe. I'm laughing so hard.
Yeah, there's a particular moment where we literally fit it down that one door that's got the winding path, and I try to hop on the Warthog right before then, and it hops me on the driver, or I'm sorry, the gunner seat, and Brian's like, no, try to hop in the driver, and I'm trying to hop in it, and I jump, and right as I get in, it starts to like slack over, and I just drive straight, and the damn thing tilts the whole way, and I'm like Tony Hawk grinding my way around this. It was
amazing.
Brian is losing it. I'm losing it.
Like, holy shit! Yeah, this is hilarious.
It was so funny, and we never could. I don't think we got it past that door down there at the end, but boy, we tried. But our Spartans got the shivers and shakes because of it.
It was so much fun.
It was a whole lot of fun playing that game, or playing that level. To
kind of break it down again, like you just
break it down.
Cool. You get way down there, and you basically just hit a switch, and then you got to make your way back up, and it's kind of confusing, very easy to get lost. You make your way all the way back up, and then once you get out there, you kill all the enemies up top, and then you get back in the Pelican.
Yeah, the actual, I guess, plot or the story beats of that mission, I just, I've never cared for. But it's just so much damn fun to play.
It's just a really well-designed mission.
Yeah, it's a whole lot of fun. I mean, you get here's the thing. When you play with the Warthog on Halo, it's fun, but the areas you get to sort of drive around in are very cramped. There's a lot of, like, rocks and stones and everything. Well, in this one, it's a little bit more open. There's still some of that, but you can really drive around on some of those beach fronts. Plus, it's just fun in general, like seeing how invulnerable those warthogs are, and you drive. We drove all the way out into the water. Ocean. Yeah, we got some sun, didn't we? Our Spartans got a little bit of tanny tans.
Yeah, you gotta use the extra strength tanning for the Mjolnir suits. You know.
Now, it was cool though. I mean, we tried to go off, I think, every damn cliff. I remember there's one part we're going up this damn cliff area, and there's some Covenant up top. And as I'm starting to get up there, on your screen, I see you whip the rocket launcher out and blast me, and I was like, oh my god!
And you go flying through the air, and you're like, ah!
And then I do make it up there. Brian's trying to go up too, and then I remember I end up accidentally vrooming off way too far, and I hop out, and I'm like, fuck! And my Spartan dies like mid-air, and then my body lands, and I get crushed underneath that warthog. It sucked. It sucked, but in the most fun way. Had a lot of fun on that mission. It was probably one of my favorite experiences playing through this with you so far.
Yeah, I love that. I love that mission. It never gets old for me. The next mission is also a fan favorite. It's probably the next mission, Assault in the Control Room, is probably the mission.
Assault if any nuts, mission Brian.
Is what's that?
Assault these nuts.
Ugh, there it is, guys. Yuck. Disgusting. If there's any mission that gets mentioned. That gives like Silent Cartographer a run for its money. It's Assault in the Control Room. People really love this mission. I think it's worthy of that praise, though I will say, replaying it now, that's the first mission in the game where I experienced some frustration with the level design, because there is so much repeating the same rooms and same hallways. Okay. I mean, it's insane how much they do it there.
I don't feel those effects until 2 Betrayals, but you're right, it really starts right there.
Well, the thing is, that's what makes it worse when we get to 2 Betrayals, is
you've already experienced it, yeah.
You've experienced the repetition. Now you're repeating it again in another mission that's the same level. It's just crazy. But, I mean, the things that really stick out to me in Assault in the Control Room are the big, open, snowy environments with the vehicles, your first introduction to the Wraith, which you cannot hijack and you can't use, which is crazy. You know, ghosts are in that mission, and the ghosts don't have like the propelling feature that later games have. The tank shows up.
The sensitivity is so sensitive on those vehicles that they don't even need to have the boost, because if they just tap into you, you're going down.
Yeah, the Scorpion tank shows up in this mission for the first time, and you can shoot both the missiles and the gun. You know, which later games they're separate. It's just all the big open outside areas are really fun. Assault in the Control Room eventually gets to where you kind of come outside and you're on that like almost like bridge. It's like a land bridge.
Yeah,
it's not like, you know, and there's that.
It reminds me of, that's where I feel like they borrowed the Narrows map from. Whoever was, I think Chris Carney and everyone was like, when they're trying to make this new map, they took a look at that and took inspiration from it, because it literally has that bridge, the type of bridge with the stairs that go down. You can shoot the glass and shit.
Oh, you're thinking? I kind of skipped past that. I was thinking of, okay, yeah. So there are those outside bridge areas, but I'm talking about once you're getting close to the end of the mission, and there's that like snowy bridge that has that elite trying to get in the Banshee, and you got to beat him to it.
Oh yes.
Which I kept dying, and eventually I beat him to it. I got the Banshee, and then you're kind of in this big area, which I'm sure most of you probably already know this, but like the final mission of Halo 3, it's the same design area as this area I'm talking about. There's like the big, like, you know, in Halo 3, there's that, you know, you're going up that kind of tower, and Sergeant Johnson is shooting with the Spartan laser at enemies. It's that same kind of structure in this mission, and you go up to the top of that.
I was thinking of the Warthog run. I was like, that's not right.
No.
But yeah, I know what you're saying.
And then you get to the top of that structure, and you open those huge doors, and there's like a ton of enemies in there. Ton of enemies in those huge doors. And you walk through all those, and you eventually get to our first control room that you ever see in a Halo game. It's huge.
Yeah, and I think we had
gigantic.
Kind of a weird early moment of nostalgia coming off the Infinite trailer, just thinking about how much that moment is going to be ingrained with us, because that's where it starts, and now we're going to eventually see that and have that.
This is kind of where experience. Kind of where Josh says, like, and I think I felt the same way as a kid. Josh said it though, is you put Cortana into the console, and she's like big Cortana, and she's like, oh no, he doesn't know what's there. Run, you gotta go, run, get out of here. And Chief's like, what the? Oh, okay, shit, and he runs. And like Josh said, like he kind of thought maybe Cortana was evil then or going bad. But really, she's just big and freaky looking, and she's telling Chief to hurry. So ultimately, Josh, for Assault in the Control Room, Do you think this deserves to be known as one of the best missions in Halo?
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, as an adult, I understand what she's saying, but young me was so confused. I was like, "Why is she getting so angry?" I was like, "Calm down, Cortana."
Calm down, baby.
Yeah, I was like, "Why are you getting so fired up? Hang on, honey. Just explain to me what's going on." You know, like it's fun though. It's fun because it's where this is the mission where it starts to take a slightly darker tone, a shift in the game's tone.
Yep.
Because I mean, it's really in a lot of ways like we're gonna get to 343 Guilty Spark in a minute, but like these are really the last two levels where you start to really get to do stuff with Marines. And this is the last time I remember having fun with Marines because when I get to 343, it's just horror, you know, trying
Total
to keep them alive.
Yeah.
But my favorite part of this playthrough, Brian, for Assault on the Control Room, was early on when you had perched up high was the Wraith that was shooting at us. And we were like, well, let's go try to jump up there. We've never tried to do it. Let's go do it.
Oh, that was
and we were
fun.
trying to jump up, and I think I managed to get up there, yeah, and managed to kill it and shit. Oh, that was a lot of fun.
And then you took him out, and you came running back with that rocket launcher on your shoulder, like mission complete.
Where are you going, Josh?
Yeah, but then the next mission, this is Josh's favorite mission.
Yes. What mission is that,
Again,
Brian?
343 Guilty Spark.
Ooh!
And once again, like kind of like to reference what I said earlier, talking about how long it takes to complete a level. Let's pretend that you have the difficulty. Let's say the difficulty is set to normal or something. You're not going to die at all. 343 Guilty Spark, it lands you in this outside swampy area that has virtually no enemies. I think you get to kill a couple grunts in there. Virtually no enemies. There's some jackals too. And you kind of go to this structure, and you enter the structure, and you go down this huge elevator, and there's some enemies, but there's not a whole lot of enemies. There's not much fighting that happens all the way down till you get to the iconic Jenkins cutscene that we love so much, and
the sacred
Chief
iconic cutscene.
Blah! Ugh, the face that Josh just made is terrifying. You look like the piranha plant from Mario.
That's what it looks like. Damn,
yeah, that's awful.
It's handsome.
But you get to that iconic cutscene that just totally sets this tone and this moment of horror. Like Chief just got into a door that he wasn't supposed to open. It was purposely locked, and he's watching his back. And
bad boy got his hands caught in the cookie jar.
Yeah, he's seeing what happened to Jenkins. He's seeing what happened to Keyes and Sergeant Johnson. And he gets done watching that. And it's cool because, like, Josh mentioned this, and I mentioned on the Twitter, too. Like, Josh talking about how, like, we get to experience exactly... Like, it's new to us the same way it's new to Chief. We're watching this playback with Chief and trying to piece together what's happening. And you come back, and then it's like the game set this tone for, like, oh, shit, what's about to go down? I'm kind of scared. And then all these little flood spores burst out of the door, and it's like, oh, shit. And, like, you're starting to go, what the heck is this? We don't know what this is. What's going on? And then after you start taking them out, another door bursts open, and now you have, like, transfigured freaking
heads with legs on them, pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty damn cool how this story flows, and the reason I love it so much is because when you initially land on it, you're not thinking this is going to be weird. Nothing feels off at this point. You land, and you're like, oh, this is swampy. I'm thinking this is cool. You start to progress, and you're not really finding anything. Nothing's really happening, and it's quiet. And it's just got a different tone. Is that why
you have swamp ass all the time, Josh? Is
Always.
You think swamps are cool?
Only have swamp ass on 343 Guilty Spark because I'm sweating booties, just getting scared at this atmosphere.
Them flood are coming.
So then you progress and you see some flood finally, and it's just these grunts. And it's like, okay, things feel a bit normal again for a moment. And then you progress more, and then you start seeing blood on the walls. Then you start seeing ammo just left around.
And the crazy Marine, we completely skipped over that.
Yeah, so...
Setting the tone, big time.
It builds up big time. And then, like Brian said, you get to this cutscene, and you as a player are synonymously experiencing this just like Chief is, you know? And like Brian said, well, at first, yeah, like Brian said, you discover the guy who's just going crazy. I think I killed him right away.
You shot him in the head. He didn't even get a chance to talk. You just pow, he's gone.
Yeah, well...
I said pow, but it was one shot.
Bang, bang! Brian, give me a bang, bang!
Bang, bang.
Bang, bang! That was so unenthusiastic. It's horrible, guys. Tell Brian about that on Twitter, Brian's Bane. So yeah, it was really cool, though, because, again, you're getting to that. You're seeing this crazy guy, and you're like, dude, what the hell is going on here? Right? You get to the cutscene, shit's popping off from this guy's perspective, and just as Chief, like, is able to assess that, like, some weird stuff went down against some weird enemies we haven't even seen in the game. Boom! The door pops open, and they're flooding out all these little heads running at you. And still to this day, my
now, was that the sound of flood spores, or was it the sound of your stomach when you haven't had chili cheese in more than 2 hours?
That's the sound of my stomach when I do have a lot of chili cheese and I get the bubble guts.
Fair enough.
But no, that's probably my favorite moment for me ever in Combat Evolved is the moment where the door bursts open, because I was really like horrified. And Halo Combat Evolved had conditioned me to just expect this spacefaring romp that kept expanding. Every level kept doing something different, but I was conditioned to think this is like colorful and fun and not like dark or really like horrifying. And then suddenly it goes there, and I mean, even playing through this with Bryan was just fun. I mean, we were pretty relaxed, I think, when we played this one, and it was fun to just kind of shoot the shit, but it was just nice to reflect on some of that stuff.
Another way that Bungie was brilliant is that, you know, they get you all the way down, deep down in this area, and then they
going down, down, down. I don't know how the rest of it goes.
In a dirty around, sugar
will going down, swinging.
Too much Fallout Boy and brute force in this episode.
Never enough brute force. We only got one game of that.
So they get you way down there where you're trapped, and then they introduce this new terrified enemy, and you try to work your way out, and you're like scrambling to get to the top. And then what I think is so genius is when you finally get out of there, you get to the top, there's a bunch of Marines up there that are like your comfort food. You're like, oh hey, these Marines are here. Like,
hey,
I feel
remember
comforted.
the past couple levels where it was fun and you were never alone?
Yeah, it's like, here you go. Here's some comforting things. Here's some Marines. So that's like Josh and I tried to keep them alive as we progressed.
We did. We gave them names, and in order to establish, you know, camaraderie and a connection with them. So we wanted to keep them alive, and I think we kept one damn guy alive. I can't remember who it was, but I
don't know.
I think his name was Steve, but we kept Steve alive.
Samson.
Yes, Samson starts with.
But we get all the way out to the swamp. And we're introduced to an iconic character for the first time. 343 Guilty Spark himself. This little... I mean, I know that like Johnson made fun of him in Halo 2 by calling him Lightbulb. But like, what did you think of him when you first saw it? Do you even remember? I don't remember. Like, he's just a floating like light.
Well, I think considering everything that had just come from playing that the first time, I mean, it was interesting, but he didn't really have any impact on me until the following level. You know, at this point, I'm just like, get me out of here.
Yeah, exactly. That's how he kind of seems like a friend. You know.
Yeah.
Don't worry, he's a friend. You know.
Yeah, I mean, and like Bryan said, it was really fun. I mean, it's a good point too. Like, they just do that structure so well. They build upon the mystery. They get you conditioned to think this is how this game is going to be. They drop you in this level, set up all this like scenes of previous battles that existed before you got there, and it's pretty exciting. You know, just in general in like Halo lore, to think that where Chief is as he's navigating through this stuff, to think stuff just happened here. Stuff just went down. The world wasn't waiting for Chief to arrive. No, stuff has been going on. And as you progress through that stuff, and you go way down, like Bryan said, and then you're fighting to get back up. And I mean, since you're playing as Chief, they're not going to have you like scrambling and running around and have Master Chief screaming. But internally, especially if you listen to the Flood book, like, he's a bit horrified in of himself. Like, not like completely scared and shaken up, but I mean, he's definitely, well, he is a little shaken up. And he's trying to get out of there, and that's just, it's so cool because you're really in that moment of like, what the fuck is going on, while you're also like, I need to get out of here. And then you do, and you run into this weird like hush puppy baby that's like, you know, come with me. And then it teleports you, and then Foehammer's like, Chief,
I can't read you.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the little Steve's over there like, I'm here though, get me. Foehammer's like, I don't give a shit about you, Chief.
Foehammer's like, it ain't worth landing for your sorry Marine ass.
No, I like to think Steve made it. I hope he's doing good.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll run into him on Halo 2.
We know that Steve became a Spartan 4 like everyone else. He's an idiot.
That's funny. I like that. What's the next level? Yeah. What do we go to next?
So the next mission is the library. I think we can shorten this one down. We can talk about this one pretty quick, because here's the truth of the level. Like, okay, so I think Josh and I both kind of agree. We don't hate the mission as much as like a lot of people seem to hate the library, but I think we can both agree that it's deserving of criticism, because what this level basically is they created one very simplistic, gray-toned, flat area, filled it with flood, and then repeated it 7 times. I mean, that's pretty much the level, right?
Yeah. You know what was fun about this, though, guys, if you've seen all these? This is the level where Bryan and I really turned our brains off. And in a good way. We got talking about a lot of different topics, Lord of the Rings especially. But why that was fun is for the reason Bryan said. It's such a repetitive level, but it is fun for us because we don't have to think about it. It's just so repetitive that like we can turn our brains off exist in the world of Halo and just talk.
The one thing I need to touch on there's one thing about this level that's actually huge that almost never gets mentioned is that the lore info that 343 Guilty Spark drops, and I would recommend anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about either play that level with subtitles on or look it up online. But the things that he touches on in that level are really forward-thinking. Like, I'm sure they didn't quite know what the plan was for a lot of the things he says in the beginning, but he talks about your combat skin, which, I mean, that's what the Mjolnir type armor is called in the Forerunner novels, is, you know, their combat skins. He talks about combat skins. He talks about how you have like a level 1 combat skin. Basically 343 Guilty Spark is, you know, we don't know what the plan was at the time, but he's more or less saying you are a Forerunner, and I don't know why you came so ill-equipped. Why are you wearing such pathetic armor? Why don't you, like, he's talking about how, like, don't you know the protocols? Like, you know how to handle this. You're my maker. You're a Forerunner. You should know this. Like, you're the one who built me.
What do you think Chief's thinking about?
Chief in that way.
this is happening. What do you think Chief's thinking about? I mean,
Chief's probably like, what the hell? He's like, I don't want to die. What the hell
are you talking about? Just get me.
I don't understand any of this. Yeah. So if you guys listen to what Guilty Spark says, it's very indicative of, you know, what was to come later in Halo as far as lore goes.
And that's one.
And also, this is the level where our logo is introduced to the Sacred Icon.
I was hoping you were going to bring that up. I was going to if you didn't, but it's pretty damn cool. I really liked that whole aspect. That's one of the things I think Bungie has done. Or I'm sorry, 343 has done that's like enhanced, you know, something Bungie did, like made it better. When Bryan told me this stuff back in 2014, and he's telling me all this Halo 4 stuff and explaining it to me so I can understand it better. He tells me this shit, and this is where, like, you can't. I mean, my eyes widen, but in my brain, it's like the explosion going off, where I'm like, whoa. Because I never thought about what he said. I honestly just thought he was some crazy old little robot. Didn't know what the hell he was talking about. He'd been alone for a long time. I'm like, this guy's crazy. It's okay. He's just, you know, he's been alone for a long time. He's getting to meet people again. He's batshit crazy. Don't tell him no. Just, you know, just go with it.
Yeah.
You know, that's pretty much what I thought. And Bryan telling me that, I was like, holy shit. And I thought, that's when for me, I started to think, really reconsider that Halo 4 might be really cool. And just having what Halo 4 brought to the table with the Forerunner trilogy and everything might be good, because I didn't beforehand. And I thought, if this is even enhancing this past experience, this is going to change the way, you know, I look at this. Almost like, you know, watching Rogue One going into A New Hope or something. It like enhances it because you're having that now engraved in something that was already established. So damn cool.
It's crazy it's just insane how much Bungie, like how much world building Bungie did in this game, when we know for a fact, after the fact, we know they really didn't know what the point of any of it was going to be.
I think that's what's great about this game overall, is that there's so many, it's
a great foundation.
Raises more questions than answers, even in the ending, you know? You're left wondering so much, and the plot just moves along, and it doesn't really, there's moments of stuff like that, or like Bryan said with keys, you know, and you get these little moments of exposition, but it never like spends too much time on it. It just keeps you moving, so you're never bored, but there is enough story and atmosphere there to raise a lot of mystery.
That's the crazy thing, is first-person shooters back at the time weren't really known for story. They were just known for, you know, fun gameplay and good level design. And Halo had the fun gameplay and good level design, but it also had it had this little carrot that it was hanging, lingering above you the whole time, of like interesting story and background. And of course that blew up big time in Halo 2, but it was kept pretty simplistic in the first game, which I think really helped it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, they could have done it better at the time anyway, but damn did they knock it out of the park. I mean, it's a fun level at the same time. First time playing it, I don't think anybody I guess I shouldn't say that. I was going to say, I don't think anybody really realized that, you know, that it was super repetitive. They probably did, so they were playing through it because it is lengthy, but I just never had an issue. Never. It never bothered me. And when I play through it with Bryan, I think, like I said in the playcast, you guys notice how kind of lax we get, and we just start talking about other stuff. I think for me, that's just something that happens every time I play that now. So I almost look forward to that level, or don't mind it, because I know this is where the story's going to take more of a backseat for me personally. And I'm just going to, if I'm playing it with a friend, I'm just going to be able to just shoot the shit with them.
Yeah.
And that's fun. That's why I play co-op.
Totally. Yeah, so at the end of the mission, you get the index, which is it's kind of cool how they name things. The index is kept in the library, and you use the index as the key that lights the Halo ring. And it doesn't get called the Sacred Icon until the second game, where you find out that the Covenant.
But that's what it is.
Yeah, the Covenant.
I hope when you guys play through that level, you think of us right over there. That little Sacred Icon is it, Bryan and Josh.
That would be so great. So you get to the next.
That would be so sacred.
Sacred. You put 343 Guilty Spark teleports you right to the control room. Well, I think the cutscene starts with you walking into the control room, so maybe he teleported you somewhere else and you kind of went there together. It doesn't really show.
Chief's
you
like,
get to the control room.
Son of a bitch back here.
Yeah, and you get to the control room, and 343 Guilty Spark has you put the index into the control room, and like the thing is, at this point, in retrospect, we always think of 343 Guilty Spark as kind of being evil because we know the things he does in the trilogy. But truthfully, when he's telling Chief to put the index into the control room, he just thinks that Chief knows all this already and that he's taken him through the steps. Like, he thinks that Chief is a reclaimer and that he's a forerunner and that he knows what the index is, what the Halo rings are built for, and it's in Guilty Spark's programming that if there's an infestation, you light the ring. And he just thinks that Chief knows that. Well, then, of course, Cortana pops up, and she's like, whoa, do you know what this thing almost made you do? Oh, don't worry, he's a friend. That whole thing. And
that's when I get really confused my first time. I'm like, everyone needs to just chill.
Chill out. And that's what Chief basically does. He gets between them, he puts his arms up, he's like, yeah, just slow down.
That's what the guys at Bungie were like, that's the name of the map. That's the name of that multiplayer map. Chill out. That's what we'll call it. That's it.
Yeah,
yep,
right,
let's go for it.
So, and then like, once again, it's just kind of confusing. And then, Cortana's basically telling you how she's just saved everyone's hide by stopping the control scheme, the ring from being activated. And then we kind of start to see 343 Guilty Spark as an antagonist. And that's also where that iconic line is delivered that I really need to write down because I always mention it. The one where he's like, Guilty Spark says something like, having reasonable time to think about your query, I've thought about it, and yes, I would like the rings. And it was this thing that made zero sense for almost ever. It was for 10 years plus. It made zero sense. Like, what is he talking about? We never had a conversation, blah, 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 blah. It's revealed in the book, The Forerunner Saga by Greg Barrett. It's revealed in Silentium that Master Chief has... I'm just going to gloss over things so it's more understandable for people who don't read the book. In Chief's DNA is the DNA of a past Forerunner called Born Stellar. And Born Stellar is the one who lit the rings. And before he lit the rings, he asked 343 Guilty Spark, if it was your choice, would you light the rings? That's the last thing he said. And then so 343 Guilty Spark here is misinterpreting Chief for Born Stellar, and he's answering the question that Born Stellar asked 100,000 years ago. It's really cool.
It's really
cool. So then what transpires here on this level, and I think we can kind of go through this one quick too, is what transpires here is you're playing the same level that as Assault in the Control Room backwards, but now with Banshees and a couple different rooms that have these like kind of electromagnetic pulses that you have to use your suit to activate.
A little silly, but it works.
So yeah, you're mostly just going through the same mission, but now with the height of using a Banshee to fly around and just kind of glossing through that. The end of the mission. What's that?
How did you feel just us playing that with your experience? How was that for you?
It's not my favorite mission, dude. I know some people really like this one, but for me, it's like let's just get through it.
If we're counting the Warthog run in the mall, this would be my least favorite level, 2 Betrayals. But if we're not thinking of the Warthog run as much, the mall would probably be my least favorite. But this would be like the second.
Yeah, because I mean, if you think about it, like Assault in the Control Room was this really fun mission, where you fight Covenant and you have Marines and all this stuff. Well, then you get to 2 Betrayals. It's darker, which it doesn't feel that way in the anniversary graphics. I'll mention it's very dark,
which is
way
bad.
darker.
I don't like it as much personally.
Yeah,
but yeah, I understand.
It's way darker. You play the same area backwards, and now you have to deal with all these flood, which aren't as fun to fight. And it's just kind of, I don't know. It's a good mission. It's just it starts to show a little bit. Things are getting repeated. So when the mission ends and you've used your suit to kind of blow up these things, Cortana says something like, "Oh, I think I can rewrite your suit, blah, blah, blah. We can use the teleportation grid." And then that's where, the next mission, she teleports you on the ship from Truth and Reconciliation, but she teleports you upside down.
Yeah. The biggest issue I think Two Betrayals has in general, objectively, doesn't even have to do with the level itself. And that's the fact that you're coming off the library going into that level. So think about it. You're playing through all these other levels, and they're changing stuff up, like Brian's mentioned. And the lengths aren't too bad. Like, depends on, obviously, your difficulty and how you are as a player, but they're not too long. You get to the library, and it's incredibly lengthy. It's the longest level at that point. And then you're like, you're going through all that stuff, and you're like, okay, what's next? Well, then they drop you into another long level. And you've
already played.
And you're already, like, even on top of, if you don't like the library, if you're someone who really just dreads getting to that one, you're coming off this exhausted. And
the whole second half of the game is really continually making you feel uncomfortable. Yeah. They're making you fight the flood.
I don't mind the tone as much. I mean, I like those kind of aspects in some ways, but it's just I'm just like, shit, like, this is another long level. Like, it doesn't feel as fun to play because of that. I'm so exhausted from what transpired on the library that I'm kind of wanting something a little bit closer to, like, Keys or the Mall in terms of length, but Two Betrayals is quite long, I think.
Yeah, so then our second to last mission you get to is Keys, which it's also a repeated mission, but at the same time it doesn't feel completely as repeated because the whole ground sections feel new, even though they're technically not really.
What's the biggest takeaway from this level?
I think it's what we discovered, right? Yep. So, okay, I'm guessing that everyone listening is going to be like, "Wow, you guys are idiots! I've known this since 2001." But if there's a single person out there who didn't know this, I think your mind will be as blown as we were. For the first time ever, we discovered right when you start that mission on the Covenant ship in the mission Keys, you walk forward just a few steps, and to the right there is like a screen you can look through, and on the other side of the screen is Keys. Like the proto-grave mine where Keys has been taken over by the flood. Mm-hmm. It's right there at the very beginning of the level. Through that window is the taken over flood key mine.
It's crazy.
It's key. Yeah, it's right there at the beginning of the mission. And I'd never seen it in my life. Like, I never had noticed that. Josh had never seen it either. And we're just awestruck by the fact that, like, he's right there.
We're just staring at the damn thing. I remember because I think we both kind of walked past it, and I noticed flood at first, and then I run back. And then I'm like talking to Brian, and then Brian points out the little flood stuff. And as soon as he points out the little flood heads, I can see what looks like the proto-grave mine in there. And then I'm starting to say it to Brian, like, we're both just realizing this at the same time, like, what the hell? And even when we got to the end of the level, you look and you can see that little hole, like the little sort of gap hole, where you can see through.
Crazy, dude. It's cool, though. It feels so cool to discover something new about a game you love so much almost 20 years
ago. It's weird. It's almost like you do, like, the level. I mean, I could be wrong, but the geometry is like a U. A U, right? Because you go, like, you're in the ship and you kind of go down, you're coming back up to just the, the other side of the wall, which is weird.
So basically, you go forward and you immediately drop down out of the ship into, like, a gooey kind of green pond, and then the next, I don't know, 5 to 8 minutes of level is you trying to get back up in the ship, fighting flood.
Let the cheat go down, let the cheat go back up.
Yep. It's real dark down there. There's, like, flood fighting Covenant. It definitely feels like, and this is a point in the game where you're like, holy shit, everything has gone to shit. It's complete chaos.
This is pretty damn cool because, like, at this point in time, you've seen how, like, the Covenant's gotten affected too. This group, this alien race, who seems so unaffected despite you mowing them down.
So superior.
So superior that always got more left in the tank. These guys are getting just smashed and just completely obliterated, overrun in these little sections. Like when you come out of that water, they're already fighting. They're not waiting for Chief. This is another thing I love about the game. Like I said, like, this game does not wait for you like a lot of other games do. You got to open this door and the enemies are there, and it seems like they've been there for years just waiting for you to open that door. It's in this game, it's like there's some levels and moments where stuff is just...
The AI is so good for this game, and they did a really good job of making you feel like these are real characters that have their own agenda, and they don't want to die. You know what I mean?
We talked a lot about Harry Potter, I remember, on this level. It was nice to talk about that a little bit. We got a little love for Harry Potter.
Probably not a selling point for a lot of you, but it was fun.
Well, it's like we talked about Lord of the Rings on the library, so I mean...
I think Keys, this mission, being on the ground and seeing the flood fight the Covenant, this is a really good callback moment to in Halo 2, when Truth says to the Arbiter, he says, you were right to focus your abilities on the infestation, but your inability to safeguard Halo was a colossal failure. So, I mean, that's really referencing exactly what happened there. Like, the Arbiter was leading this fleet, and he had to decide how he was going to lead his men, the Covenant, to handle this. So he decided to handle the, he's probably thinking he's like, most of the humans are dead. There's only one ship. There's not many people out there. Like, it'd make more sense to focus on the Flood. But really, this whole time, you have this cyborg running around who manages to destroy the holy relic that is the Halo ring.
Yeah, because when you think about it, there's even in the Flood book, there's only a couple like pockets left of just Marines and stuff, right? And I would imagine from his perspective,
like, what's the point?
From the Covenant's perspective, it's like they're like ants at this point. The humans, the Marines, the UNSC is just almost completely non-existent. So it's like that's a problem that's going to take care of itself because of the Flood going on. You think? So he's going to focus on all the other important stuff. Well, then Master Chief comes through. So.
Like, I would have done the same thing if I was in charge. I'm like,
yeah, I mean, you can't. When you look at it from that perspective, you can't really blame him.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean, basically, once you get back to the ship lift that brings you back up into the ship, you're kind of going through familiar areas from back in Truth. I mean, at this point, they're reusing Truth and Reconciliation, which is it's crazy how it's so smart though, because ultimately we don't care that much now, and we didn't care at all back then. It feels like a new level.
Yeah, when I think about, sometimes I talk about how I want games to kind of look, well, I don't know if I said this before, but like one of my issues with Halo 2 was that like everything was very tight corridory and stuff like that, and I didn't enjoy playing the campaign as much. The story's fun, but I just didn't personally enjoy the flow of the levels and stuff like that as much. Well, I'm glad for that being what it is. I wouldn't want to change it or anything, but I think kid me back then would have probably not minded had they literally just used tit for tat, the same assets, and just found a way to make new levels, Like, I know they probably couldn't have done that. I'm just saying, like, they did it so well in levels like this that it works.
I think one thing that's unique to point out, too, about how game design has changed and how, like, today's younger gamers view what's good in a game. Like, if you look at something like, let's go to Halo 5, which is, like, Halo 1's probably one of the most heralded games in the series, if not the most. And then you have Halo 5, which is the one that's the most disliked. Halo 5 has a lot of those big, bombastic,
I love when you use that word.
Moments. What's that?
I love when you use that word. I think of Jar Jar Binks.
Do you want me to call this episode Bombastic Jar Jar Binks?
Yes, I do.
Okay, that's the episode title. That was easy. I was thinking the whole time, what's it going to be?
Easy.
Be Bombastic Jar Jar Binks.
'Cause it's easy.
Keep going, Josh. Beautiful.
Yeah. Easy like Sunday morning.
What rhymes with bombastic? Elastic.
Yeah.
I got an elastic, bombastic,
gangrene ass on 343.
Gangrene ass on 343. It's not until Master Chief fell in that green goo that he had that gangrene ass.
Yeah, you just hear like a.
Cortana's like, Chief, what stinks in here?
It's not me. Like right away, he's like, "It's not me. It's not me."
That's Foehammer.
Foehammer's like, "Chief, I'm having a hard time thinking about picking you up now after you said that shit to me about me to Cortana."
Chief, I can't read you. There's no toilet paper left. I'm out. Bring some, Charmin. I don't know.
Wow.
Anyways, guys, back to the mission.
Yeah.
You pretty much just go through. The rest of that ship, the same ship you were on in Truth and Reconciliation, and then you get to this big reveal that not only could you not get the keys on time, but he is now like in this big like freaking flood ball, which we really didn't know at all what that was back then, but we knew that, and we know now that the Flood were coming together to bring all the different intelligences of different organic beings to form a grave mind. So that was like a proto grave mind. It hadn't got there yet, but it was on its way to becoming a grave mind.
Yeah.
So what do you think? About
biggest takeaway from that is honestly like we talked in the very beginning of this topic of discussion about how we don't like the anniversary graphics as much. Well, for me, I'm so glad they're still there, because the biggest takeaway is how much this moment is enhanced by the terminals that we get from this.
I was going to mention. I'm glad you mentioned it.
And it's just. I almost don't watch those because that scene is so depressing and horrifying to just think about.
But it sells this moment
but
so much better.
Does. It really adds depth to it. It's another thing that 343 does that enhanced something that Bungie had already done, because you really feel the weight of it now. Even though, like, when Bryan and I are playing through this, it's not like we hit pause and we went and watched this. We didn't. Mm-hmm. But knowing that that's a thing
it's
now,
in my mind.
It's in our minds, and it just enhances this moment. Because, I mean, when you watch it now with 2001 graphics, he sticks his damn fist in, goo comes out, and the friggin' face is gone. He takes the whole damn face out.
I mean, because we know the chip's stored in his head. I mean,
right. But Chief's just like, I'm going to rip this whole head off. It don't matter anymore.
Like, oh, are you guys sad that a character just got infested? Well, there goes his head. Lol.
Man, this is weird. Like, imagine terminal, dude. Imagine it being Lasky, and Chief is just like, sorry, man. Yeah. He just rips the whole damn thing out.
Oh, Corbulo Academy?
He pulls it like a damn, like, stem, out of the ground. It's just crazy.
Yeah, that terminal, though, it shows Key's using all of his mental strength to fight back the parasite, and he's trying to remember his who
he's using repetition memory to sort of like
his name, his marine code. He's thinking of Halsey because they used to have a relationship, and just to see him finally be like taken over, and he says something like, "Oh, we're lost," or "I've forgotten everything," and then the Gravemind's just like,
Gravemind's like, yeah, you did, yeah, you lost.
It's crazy, dude.
You're losing your memory.
But then basically the mission, it's pretty much over at that point. You just quickly run out, get a Banshee, take off, and then we are presented with the final mission of the game, the mall.
Yeah, but before we even got there, I never actually made it onto the mall because I died. Bryan made it into a Banshee.
Well, because you can jump down and get to the Banshee quicker, but you have to jump down to a ledge, get your health back, and then jump again. He just jumped straight down. I just saw Josh go, woo! Dead.
I sure did.
Yeah.
I said, it's my turn.
And then as I'm flying away in the Banshee, Josh's like, no, Bryan, don't leave me.
Yeah, like, Bryan, come back. I've respawned.
Yeah.
I was outnumbered and died. No, actually, I made it into this. Eventually, we may do a playcast of the second game, and you'll see that I made it back just like Johnson did.
Yeah.
Boom.
But then when we get to Halo 3, you're in co-op, you'll be the Arbiter. I'm like, where's second Master Chief at? He made it through Halo 1 and 2, but he never made it to Halo 3. There's no second
All right,
Master
he's
Chief.
around. He's around.
He's always lurking in the shadows.
He is. He's in Canada or something. He's
Shadow Chief.
Canadian Chief. Canadian Chief.
Chief, eh?
Hey there, pal. How you doing? I'm here to fight off these Covenant, okay?
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
So we get to the maw, and what I think is crazy about this mission is, I'll be honest, when I first played this as a kid, I had zero idea that this was the first mission of the game. Repeated, because when you get to this level, the ship is not in space; it's on the ground, and it's burnt to a crisp, and it's surrounded by brown dry land.
It being burnt to a crisp makes the graphics look so crappy. They suck, and they don't actually suck. I'm just saying it makes them look that way because everything is so desolated.
Once again, they managed to reuse, they reused an asset in the fact that they reused the entire freaking level. But because the skybox and the area surrounding is different, and they've made the whole ship look degraded, it felt like a new mission. So I think me and Josh are pretty much in agreement. Playing through this mission in these tight corridors, fighting Flood and Sentinels, it's not the most fun, but what the real cream of the crop ends up being the Warthog run at the end.
It is. And, but it's still fun, though, in the sense that you do come full circle. I mean, it's a very subtle way of them doing it, but you do come full circle back on that ship and fighting your way off of it.
The story's cool with, 343. I actually like there's this one line where 343 Guilty Spark, he's going through, the systems of the Pillar of Autumn, and he's like, all of our lost time... humanity, is it? And it's kind of like a little bit of a foreshadow to, as we know, and this is something I'd love to do a whole podcast episode on at some point, is we know that Bungie had originally intended for Forerunners to just be regular humanity from a long time ago. Eventually that changed, but this is one of those moments where 343 is saying, all of our lost time, humanity, is it? He's like, because whatever they called themselves, that's the thing, is they can be humans just the same as Chief 100,000 years ago, but they might not use the word humanity to describe themselves, you know what I mean? And then we got that cool scene with, Chief chucking that grenade up in his hand that's the size of his head.
This is the kind of thing where I don't feel like any Halo game is ends well without having a Warthog run. And only 1 and 3 have done that. And I just want to pick your brain, Bryan. What if this sort of became with Infinite and maybe let's say we eventually get into whatever the next one is, even if it's 10 years. Like, I would love... How would you feel if Halo kind of started to become defined by, like, how cool that game's version of the Warthog run is? Like, every game kind of had some kind of Warthog run. I would love that. Like, it's a tradition.
I think I'd more or less like that. I know I could later eat my words and be like, oh, this is getting repetitive. But, like, I would like to see it again, especially since this is a hot take that many won't agree with me on. But I feel like Halo 3 was a really piss-poor version of it. I wasn't a fan of how Halo 3 did it.
I think it's still fun. I just don't like...
I still enjoy it.
It just feels like you're on, like, a weird, like, Forge kind of...
Feels like you're on a Forge map or something. Yeah. Like, it doesn't make... Like, the paneling just... It feels very cheap. Feels like they ran out of time or money. So I'm not a real huge fan of that.
I understand. I still like it, but I get it.
Yeah, I still like it too.
But yeah, the Warthog
I would love to, I think Infinite needs to have a Warthog run. I feel like I'm expecting that.
No, I know. It should. Infinite should have that. And guys, it was so much fun because Brian's screen didn't have the timer. And we decided at first we're going to both hop in our own Warthogs and we're going to just try to gun for it. And Brian dies. I pick him up. We drive.
Actually, I didn't die. You teleported me out of my Warthog.
Oh, that's right. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I'm the asshole by unintention. Then anyway, Brian gets in mine. We drive for a bit. It gets flipped. I'm like, Brian, hop in. Like, doesn't matter. Just hop in. And guys, the coolest thing about this is we'll mention it on there. We might not have it up by the time this pod's up. But the last time Brian and I played through Halo CE's co-op was Master Chief Collection release night in 2014. So when that happened, for you guys who haven't heard this story, what happened was we get to the final part. We hop out and we're running for that ship. And just as we're about to get on, I get kicked from the game. Brian gets on board, and I don't get the achievement for beating the level that Brian does, I also don't get the achievement for beating the game that Brian does. And it pissed me off. Brian laughed right away. And so anyway, this was a really interesting moment of coming full circle, of like closing the chapter.
Works.
I got a little bit of closure now because, as you guys will see when the video does go up, we did it. We both made it. And there was one point where Brian died, and I was just like, no, like I could just gun for it here, and maybe he'll respawn, maybe he won't, but we'll still.
It was like me and Josh were running like in a triathlon. It's one of those deals where like the guy you were beating trips and falls, and Josh is like leading, and he turns around, he's like, do I go for the finish line or I go back and help?
Like, no,
I'll go back and help.
Yeah.
Get up, Brian. We'll finish together.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that was fun, man. I'll cherish that moment because it did get intense for us. We got down to, I think it was the last like 40 seconds or something like that. We didn't have too much time left, and we flipped all around, but we made it.
Yeah. I mentioned to Josh on the playcast, I don't know if you guys remember this, but like when you finish the game on MCC, obviously you have the cutscene with Chief and Cortana, and he says, I think we're just getting started. But in the original game, after the credits play, there's a brief, 3-second cutscene of Guilty Spark flying through space. And we end up knowing where he flew to. He flew to, I think he flew to the gas, what do you call it? Like the gas thing, the place you go in Halo 2.
Yeah, where, oh my god. Say roof of me is.
Yeah, so I the heretic leader. So yeah, I kind of prefer if we could still have a way to see that, but...
Well, hopefully that's another thing that they just kind of add on, like,
of course, they'd have to redo it in anniversary graphics, or it'd stand out like a sore thumb if it wasn't.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. But still, it's like, damn, they should just put that in. But
ultimately, Josh, to sum up this topic we chose today, let me ask you a few questions.
Do you want to talk about the multiplayer first, or get into that a little after?
Well, you know what? My bad. Let's do that real quick.
Yeah, because there's not too much to say about that. We went through and played 2 maps. I can't remember.
Just to kind of get a refresher.
Yeah, just to get a little refresher and see what it was like. We wanted to do a little bit of big team, but that wasn't popping at the moment for people, so we jumped into some regular Slayer. And you could tell me what you think, Brian, but it's not as fun. It's probably our least favorite Halo multiplayer, but it's still
it's a product of its time to me.
Yeah, it just, that one hasn't aged as well as I think all the other ones have, but it's still so much fun. I mean, like, just running around shooting one another, it's a lot more frantic.
It is the base of what we have today, and we love the game, and it's still fun, and it deserves the praise because of what it was when it came out. But now it feels like the DNA of Halo 2 was just strong enough that 2 in every game going forward is very replayable today, where Halo 1 feels like it's stuck in an archaic past.
Yeah, we know a lot of people like that. I could be wrong, but I think a couple people in our community, that's like their favorite one. So not to discredit you guys, like, we know that's still super fun.
It offers something different.
It does. And I mean, I think if we're talking like big team battle, that is one of my favorite big team battles. I've had so much fun every time I've ever played that. There's so much humor from just how easy it is to betray your teammates to just how much fun it is to play things like CTF.
Yep.
You can't, the hardcore aspect isn't there. And yeah, I mean, that is a shit ton of fun. I've just never personally, and I think Brian's the same, we've never enjoyed it as much in the typical like Slayer and those variants. But otherwise, super fun.
Yep, totally. So as a complete summarization of Halo Combat Evolved, Josh, I'll kind of give you a structure of how I'm going to answer it, and then you can answer it as...
All right, bet.
When I first played... Right back at you. When I first played Halo Combat Evolved, like you guys know, I played it after Halo 2.
I love that you're saying that now, by the way.
Because I played Halo 2 first, and when I played Halo Combat Evolved, I was amazed by it. I thought it was great. Even after playing it after 2, and to me, because I played 2 first, and 2 had better graphics and all that stuff, I thought 2 was better. But I played Halo Combat Evolved, and I'm like, wow, this is just as good, except the graphics aren't as good. I felt like the graphics weren't as realistic looking as 2 back on the original Xbox. But I loved the game. I really enjoyed it. And as time's gone on, I just continued to love it more and more. And even replaying it now, I think a large part of it's because of nostalgia. I love it just as much now as I did back then. In my nostalgic eyes, it's a 10 out of 10. But on another note, looking at the game very objectively and playing through it with Josh and conversing about it today, the game was far, far from perfect. Far from perfect. It wasn't even close. It was just so ahead of its time and such an experience to behold. But, with a mixture of repeating missions, reusing assets, having really bland environments that weren't fleshed out, it had a lot of issues. It ultimately just didn't matter, especially for the time. But it does. Like, it wouldn't be hard to make up a list of ways that game could be improved. So, I guess if I'm being... To add to that, another note, I had my wife try playing Halo for the first time, back when we started this...
Halo.
Yeah, back when we started this podcast, we were having Erica play this for the first time, and I tried to start her with Halo 1, thinking that would be the best place because that's the beginning of the story. But for her, the game was just... She didn't think the characters and story were that interesting because it's a 20-year-old game, and it's just kind of, it's...
Did that stagger you, Brian?
It did a bit, but now I'm pretty accepting of it. I don't think Halo 1 is a good place to start new fans. I don't think everyone will agree with me here, but I think if you're trying to start someone on Halo for the first time ever in 2020, do not choose Halo Combat Evolved. Josh and I mentioned on the podcast before what we would recommend. I'm pretty sure we went with Halo 3 and 4 as the two best to start with for varying reasons. But yeah, I think Combat Evolved, I think it, in one sense, it holds up still to this day as a great game and a great piece of gaming history. But I think on another note, because of how far we've developed, the game industry's developed, it doesn't hold up as well. There's definitely things that have been done better since. So I guess in 2020, maybe it's an 8 out of 10 game.
Yeah.
But it's a 10 out of 10 for me personally. I love it.
Yeah.
And the multiplayer's fun. But Josh, over to you.
It's so much fun. I think the problem with it is, for me, is the farther I get away from it, the more I tend to forget about it when the discussion for Halo comes up compared to the other games. I always feel like I have so much more to say about the other games. It's like Combat Evolved is the first slice of pizza you ever eat. And it's amazing. And you're like, wow, I love this and I want more of it the rest of my life. But you never quite remember the first time. Like, it's there, but you don't remember the taste as much. You remember the tastes that have come after. Like, remember that time I tried out this different brand, this different version? I really like this type of toppings. I really like this or that. But I don't think as much about that first one. Like, it's there, and it set the tone for everything that came after. But I always find myself talking about everything else after. Yet, I love Combat Evolved. I think for me, I don't know if any of you guys will understand what I'm saying, but something about the way it felt on the original Xbox, like even if I popped it in today and played it, has this look that MCC still had. Maybe it's because like now we're seeing it in 4K, 1080, and clean and crisp and everything.
More frames
that it's kind of worn that novelty off. But something about even how the water looked. Like, I mean, Taraz has pointed this out in some of his stuff, but the way the graphics just kind of looked, it's slightly just a smidge different in the original, and I think I kind of like missed that version of it. But it's not lessened because I'm playing the MCC version. I don't think of it like that. But it's probably, would you say 8 out of 10?
Yeah, for today's standards, if I'm trying to be objective.
Yeah, I'd probably go with that, Brian. I'd probably go with that because it still had a lot of fun. It's just, as much as I love the tone that starts in 343 Guilty Spark, that carries through the rest of the game, I don't necessarily like the levels that come after. Like, I don't mind them, but I don't like them anywhere near compared to the first.
It's not like you just want to turn on the game and play those missions only.
Yeah, like if I was ever doing that, if I was ever going to be a stickler, I would honestly play up until the end of 343 Guilty Spark and then say, okay, I'm done. I'm going to go play like Halo 2 or whatever I'm going to play. Like, I would just kind of stop there because the rest is not as fun. The tone is cool, it's not as fun. And a big part of the biggest reason for me, and I kind of forgot to mention this earlier, guys, is that you just don't have the Marines anymore. Like, the last time you have them is in 343 Guilty Spark, and you don't really run into any more after that. And that's, for me, what I loved so much about it was, even though I'm a super soldier and there's no other ones like me, I'm never alone. And then I get to a point in the game where I am alone. And it fits the narrative, it fits the tone, and it adds to it. So in a way, I'm contradicting myself, but I admit still, subjectively, to loving those moments when those Marines were around me to add to the combat, to add to the player agency, to add to the atmosphere and story.
Yeah. I think I think one thing that's always going to make Halo Combat Evolved so special that it can't be taken away from it is it was so simple, and it was before any sequels came, I was about to say before any novels. Technically, Halo: The Fall of Reach came out before the game, but that's a whole different story.
Technically,
but it was just a simple time. It was a simple game. It wasn't marred by canon and sequels. And I think that's also one of the reasons why every now and then you'll meet that person who says the only game that ever came close to Halo 1 for me was Halo Reach, because I feel like Halo Reach was designed very similarly in that it was a very simplistic, straightforward story kind of. Didn't have the heavy exposition and all the canon stuff in its way. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's fair, and it kind of got right to the point too. It didn't waste as much time.
Halo 2, Halo 2's exposition is off the freaking charts, and there's barely any in Halo.
And it's a long game. Yeah, you go through a lot playing as both of them.
Yeah.
So
Halo Combat Evolved, just as good as ever, guys. We loved it. It was a great time. That is now there for the history books. You can watch.
Yeah, Brian and I mentioned this a couple times after we got into the first couple episodes behind the scenes. We were just, for us selfishly, we were happy that this stuff would be up there in case, Brian and I just are always wanting to just flip that on, and just listen to it and just hear our two memories. Because, we did this podcast having so many conversations, because of so many conversations in the past, because of all these things we do. Talk about all these hangouts we had, and we just never recorded that stuff. We didn't think to do it. No one does. You're just living in the moment. But now we have this preserved for our friendship. So we hope you guys get to go back and watch that whenever you want, and it's there for preservation.